Hello everybody, this is a guide and a general optimization tips for Black Mage at level 90, especially considering there's no actual guides out there, including the balance not having anything for Black Mage at the moment aside from the basic changes and rotation. I thought I'd make one myself. So to start off with the general changes, ley lines came from a 90-second cooldown to a 2-minute cooldown. Sharp Cast now has 2 charges and lasts for 30 seconds. Triple Cast has 2 charges. Mana Font is a 2-minute cooldown. And your Fire Starter proc will last for 30 seconds and your Thunder proc will last for 40 seconds. The major thing about the Thunder proc is that now, since your dot lasts for 30 seconds and it has a 40-second proc, that means you can actually now hold your proc for when you need to reapply your dot. The additional skills with High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2 allows you to add more buttons into your AoE rotation. And with Paradox, while it says 500 potency on the tooltip, it is unaffected by Fire or Ice phase and the damage is very similar to Fire 4. Because of this, using it in your Ice phase is very important, but in your Fire phase it's not as important if you can go an entire phase without using, say, Fire 1. To give an example, when you're going into your Ice phase right here, you just need 3 stacks and then you have your Paradox ready. Once you have Paradox ready, it will have a different effect depending on Fire or Ice phase. In Ice phase, it will be instant cast and allow you to refresh your Ice phase. In your Fire phase, you need to have 3 stacks of Ice and then 3 stacks of the Umbral Hearts. Once you go in, it will have the exact same effect as Fire 1, but the same potency as a Fire 4. So you see my Fire 4s doing about the same as my Paradox right here. And now with the Fire Starter proc, when you happen to find yourself with a Fire Starter proc, normally you would use it at the end of your Fire phase or whenever you need to refresh. But with the changes to the proc now being 30 seconds, you can actually do something interesting where you can go into your Ice phase, use Paradox, Transpose, and then Fire 3. With the proc, it will give you your 3 stacks instantly. The major point of doing something like this is so that you can go into your Fire phase with 1 less GCD, because having a Fire Starter proc will in turn delay your Fire rotation, which won't affect you all that much aside from Mana Font. And the other problem with delaying your Fire phase every time you happen to have a Fire Starter proc is eventually you'll get to a point where raid buffs will come up, but you'll be in your Ice phase instead. Paradox can always be held no matter the time, but it won't allow any additional effect if you're not in either stance. So it's very important to just have something up. Enochian now no longer is a button, it's just a trait. And so purely by existing gives you a 20% damage increase. Now for the general opener. What I like to do as Black Mage is a more modified no Blizzard 4 opener. And with the added change to Sharp Cast and that you can use this outside of combat, since it lasts for 30 seconds, I usually see a 20-second countdown as the optimal way for Black Mages to actually provide their opener. Considering that Paradox basically is the same damage as Fire 4, if you can go through an entire Fire phase without using Fire 1 in, say, the opener, then it'll be largely not noticeable. So here, when a countdown starts will always happen usually around 15-20 seconds. So for a 20-second countdown, you'll just instantly pop Sharp Cast and wait. Now I'll pre-pull ley lines and then do my opener here. Instead of Blizzard 4, I go immediately into it. Amplifier, Sharp Cast, and I use Swift Cast here, and then Triple Cast again. And then you'll hard cast that last Despair. Go into your Blizzard phase. And this will be general opener for it. Once you swap over to your ice, you will use Xenoglossy. But in the case of fights where you don't know, or where you need the movement, you can hold on to it. Now, important things to know about Black Mage. Be very careful when using Sharp Cast for your Thunder proc, because there's a slight problem where if you go and use Sharp Cast, use your Thunder proc, and then weave in Sharp Cast again, like you'll see I have it right here, I use it, and it burns through 2 uses of Sharp Cast. So you want to be very careful with that. Another bit of optimization is for Paradox. The requirement is to have a certain amount of stacks of Fire and Ice and swap to another element. That is important because that means Transpose actually gives you your Paradox proc. So if I use Transpose right here, I still get Paradox. So in cases where the boss will turn away, you can use Transpose and then get your stacks back. Now in cases where you happen to not have any of either, or let's say you go into your ice phase, you use your Paradox, and then the boss jumps away, and now you don't have it. What you can do is Transpose, depending on how long the fight goes, and then Transpose again, and then go for it. That way you can have your Paradox ready the moment you go into your ice, and then instantly do it. Important things to note: Amplifier should always be used on cooldown. Sharp Cast should always have at least 1 use on cooldown, along with the fact that Sharp Cast should mainly be used on your Thunder procs. Should you happen to not be able to use it on Thunder procs, it's not the end of the world. Just remember about when you're using your Fire 3 procs, or that you're using the procs in general. Another thing to note: if this is on cooldown, it doesn't matter at what point you use it, so long as that you use it without clipping or delaying a GCD. So let's say a boss is about to come back in 5 to 10 seconds. It doesn't matter if I use it right now or in 5 seconds from now. it'll still have the same effect because this will be lost the moment I cast, but the cooldown will still be the same. So don't be too worried about sharp cast now. With 2 charges, it now can help you a lot. I still suggest using triple cast both on cooldown. In fights where you require to delay your triple cast for movement, this second charge is really useful, but my rule of thumb is to always tend to keep it on cooldown. Use swift cast for that extra bit of movement that you need. As for lucid dreaming, with the added potency for that lucid dreaming, there is the niche optimization where you can go into your ice phase and then you go like instantly back into your fire phase like this, where you do 3 fire force and despair. This could be less useful now with the added idea that paradox now affects you, and that paradox is now equivalent potency to fire 4. So that kind of optimization is now no longer as required for that extra damage. But the idea now is to always keep your GCD rolling as much as possible, along with the fact that with paradox, your fire phase should be relatively even throughout the entirety of it. Another minor change is that Blizzard 4 happens to have a shorter cast time, so instead of being the same cast time as Fire 4, it's now a normal GCD. So when you're using Swift Cast on Blizzard 4, it's actually no longer a DPS gain as it kind of used to be. With the changes to Freeze, however, it now has a longer cast time, and it no longer grants your 3 ice. Instead, Blizzard 2 does it. And so let's say you drop your ice, right? Or like, let's say you drop an Okian, and you need to get it back. Since Blizzard 3 is still a longer cast time than Blizzard 2, with roughly a similar potency, opening up with a Blizzard 2 will help you get back faster, along with the fact that that extra second could be the difference between an extra polyglot or not. And since you don't have to clip your GCD to activate an Okian, you can go instantly into another GCD right away. And even if you drop your Enochian, you still have Paradox ready, if you happen to still have it. So let's say you happen to be casting, you see you have Sharp Cast ready. Without clipping a GCD, you're able to do it. Now for a minor thing to keep in mind, your AoE rotation, since it has been changed. This will be the new AoE rotation for Black Mage. You'll start off with Sharp Cast, Ley Lines whenever the mob pack ends. Go with High Blizzard 2, Thunder 4, Freeze, and then High Fire 2, do 2 Fire 2s, and then 2 Flares, Manifold Flare. You'll never use Paradox because it's an AoE. With the level 80 trait, Foul becomes instant cast, so if you happen to need to move when an AoE is after you, you can either use your Thunder procs or a Foul. This can also be Paradox can also be used in the middle of a mob pack while moving to refresh your ice. But as the AoE rotation goes, it is not that difficult. You do 3 high fire 4s and then 2 flares. You always keep your dot up and use your fouls as necessary. And that's a general opener and guide for Black Mage at level 90. It's largely unchanged from its level 80 counterpart, but with a lot more quality of life that you can now have. There is a little optimizations here and there for your general opener, but the important thing to know is before you can start playing good, you need to make sure you don't play bad. So keep your GCD rolling, don't drop your Nokian, and use your cooldowns on cooldown. Thank you for watching.